this video is walking you guys through your third and final unit essay. This unit, as you know, we kind of switched gears and we moved towards looking at literary analysis, looking at how you construct arguments for literary texts. So what you're going to do is basically essentially take the skills that you've learned in writing and constructing arguments and analyzing and put that towards analyzing a text. So the prompt is pretty simple. You're going to choose one of the short stories that you read in this unit. It must be one of the ones that we read in this unit. Develop a written literary analysis of that particular work. Make sure that you are integrating that terminology that we've looked at over the course of this unit, such as characterization, setting, plot, conflict, etc. And then make sure you have a good, solid thesis claim around a central focus, one of those particular literary elements, and then include specific main ideas that are supported by evidence from the text. So what that means is that you will pull in quotes from the text that show your audience what you're talking about. And that serves as a form of evidence. So you have four options: Hills Like White Elephants, The Yellow Wallpaper, The Cask of Amontillado, and Everyday Use. And as you write, so you've probably done this more than likely in high school, but as you write, you want to consider the following. So consider, what is the primary literary element you want to focus on? There's a lot you can say about each of these stories, but I was just trying to narrow your focus to say one primary element, saying I really want to focus on the idea of conflict or characterization or point of view, or theme or symbols, whatever it might be. You can also think about, is there one of the literary theories that you could apply to your analysis? So do you want to look at one of these stories through the lens of a particular literary theory, such as new criticism or historicism or gender studies? There's a lot of ways you can look at these different texts. And then think about, what is the argument you're trying to make. So when you're analyzing a text, you're not just telling your audience what happened, you're making an argument about that story. So for example, in Harry Potter, if you said the main theme of Harry Potter is that friendship helps you overcome anything, that would be an argument. You're creating what you say is an argument around a particular meaning of the text. Or, for example, in Hills Like White Elephants, if you said you wanted to talk specifically about the symbolism in the story, a thesis claim that makes an argument could be something like, three different symbols in Hills Like White Elephants help create meaning for an audience where much is unspoken. So, for example, we'll be looking at the hills themselves, the crossroads of the railroad tracks, and whatever the third symbol might be. Those are thesis claims with an argument that you're making about the text. If I just said The Yellow Wallpaper is about a woman who's suffering postpartum depression, while true, doesn't necessarily make an argument about it. But if I said The Yellow Wallpaper's primary theme is the oppression of women due to the rest cure in Victorian era, then that is an argument. That's a thesis claim. So again, think about what's the primary argument that you're making, and then think about what other literary elements does the author use to achieve that messaging or that goal. So if I was going to look at the Cask of Amontillado and I was going to say that the conflict of the Cask of Amontillado is man versus man, or if I wanted to say like the setting maybe is helps drive the plot in the Cask of Amontillado, I could say that the catacombs, were a particularly important setting for the American Gothic style. I could say that the setting of Carnevale was really important in helping to obscure, to flip upside down the social norms. Or I could say something like the characterization of Fortunato led to this particular thing because he was a dynamic or a flat or a round character or something like that. Think also about the author's background. So in each of these stories, what the author has experienced is actually really important, at least in relation to some aspect of the story. So how does that help influence the meaning of the work? So for example, in Hills Like White Elephants, Hemingway himself was an expat who had fought in the war, who was disillusioned, who lived in Europe. So he could speak from a certain place on that. Everyday use, same thing. Yellow Wallpaper, same thing with Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So think about how the author's own experiences or background or identity helps influence that meaning. And then lastly, you can think about the critiques that you can make about the text in a scholarly manner. So critique doesn't mean negative necessarily. Critique could be positive or negative. But think about the critiques you can make about the text in a scholarly manner. So you need to include at least 2 research sources in this work. One of the requirements for the college is that one of these has to be from the library database. So when you go in, you saw in the video explanation about how to find scholarly sources, you can search by the author, you could search by the short story, you could search by the concept. So if you wanted to say symbols in Hills Like White Elephants or the importance of the quilt in everyday use, you can do that. So make sure that you are using these by pulling out specific quotes from those scholarly sources and your other source that you choose, and make sure that you are integrating those quotes as evidence to support your claims. And make sure you include that on the bibliography and cite them in text. And again, you should have a clear thesis claim with your main ideas, and you should have an introduction with a clear thesis claim, your main ideas with evidence and logical reasoning, and then your conclusion as well. This needs to be 3 to 4 pages in length and is due on Sunday, May 7th at 11:59 p.m. All the usual requirements: minimum page, proper MLA, make sure everything is checked, everything will be checked for plagiarism, and that you have a bibliography, which includes whichever work you are analyzing plus the 2 sources. And again, you're more than welcome to use more than 2 if you like. Your essay, you're going to have an outline in this unit, so that will be, I think, 20 points, and then your final draft altogether counts as 80 points. And you're assessed on making sure you have close analysis of the work and its major concepts, good evidence from both the primary and secondary sources to support your claims, proper number of sources, proper length, MLA, citations, fully developed essay structure, including an introduction, main ideas, and a conclusion, and careful organization of all ideas. So I've listed some helpful suggestions here of literary elements you can look at when writing your analysis. Again, I highly recommend you focus on one primary, so one like characterization or literary devices or structure, and then think about other literary elements you can enfold into your analysis. But you want to keep it narrow and focused and concrete rather than trying to cover, say, 30 different literary elements, but only giving each one, say, a couple of sentences. So for characterization, you can think about things like archetypes. You can think about protagonists versus antagonists. Are they major or secondary? Are they developed? Are they not? Are they flat? Are they static? Are they round? Are they dynamic? Think about literary devices like similes, metaphors, personifications, irony. Structure, you can think about the dramatic arc, so the rising action, the climax, the falling action, the conflict. So in this case, it could be man versus man versus society, man versus self. What's the solution or the resolution, and what's the point of view? Is it first person? Is it third person, omniscient? Why does that matter? And you can also think about literary concepts like themes, symbols, motifs, allusions. And then, of course, last but not least, you can also think about the historical context. So the biographical context of the author, the history surrounding the work, the events taking place at that time, the social, ethical, or moral issues being discussed, so on and so forth. And this is purposefully broad because I want you guys to choose the work that is most interesting to you of these 4, but I also want you to think about what was most interesting about that work to you. So was it the symbolism? Was it the characterization? Was it the dialogue? Was it the conflict? The setting? These things will help you more easily write those 3 pages that you need to write. And of course, if you have any questions at all, you're welcome to email me. You're not required to have any of this approved by me ahead of time. But if you have questions, you want to run them by me, please feel free. I'm more than happy to help. So let me know if you have any questions, but otherwise, go ahead and move on.